This is the CBC Evening News.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. This is the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, it will be a year of celebrations in Barbados and across the diaspora. That's what's being planned for the island, with preparations underway for the 50th anniversary of independence next year. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Maxine McLean, has revealed the official launch is planned for December this year, led by Prime Minister Fendel Stewart. She says a coordinating committee is in place to plan events leading up to the big occasion.
It is expected that we will have a core set of national events, signal events or signature events that really would capture our path and achievement of independence. One of the things I can tell you is that the Prime Minister is very concerned that at the heart of whatever we do, we need to reflect the values, those core values that have made us who we are and what we are as a young, successful nation. And so that is going to be reflected in what we do.
Senator McLean says Barbados has made an important contribution to world affairs and has earned a good reputation in the region and beyond. She believes the story of independence and the journey to the 50th anniversary needs to be documented.
It is essential that our young people have a proper understanding going forward of where we have come from, the impact we've had, not only within the region, but globally as well. And we feel that it is necessary that we celebrate our successes. Those successes have been many.
Lawmen have a number of suspects in custody assisting with investigations into at least 4 robberies recently highlighted in the media. Police Public Relations Officer, Acting Assistant Superintendent David Welch says charges could be laid in these matters shortly.
The Royal Barbados Police Force is pleased to announce that we have made a significant breakthrough into a number of recent criminal matters that were highlighted in the press. Those matters are the robberies at Tapas Restaurant, ANC Security, the service station at Redmond Village, and the Caribside Canteen. A number of persons are currently in custody assisting with these investigations. I must also state that we have recovered 1 firearm and a quantity of ammunition whilst investigating the ANC security matter.
Central Bank workers are again off the job, this after a brief period in which they returned to their posts to facilitate a meeting between the bank's management and the Barbados Workers Union earlier today. But those talks broke down, with the BWU's General Secretary, Tony Moore, saying the union is upset at the fact that the bank appears not to take this morning's meeting seriously. According to Ms. Moore, the chief spokesman for the bank appeared not to be aware of the matters of contention, even though she adds it was publicly ventilated since last Wednesday.
We had asked the workers as a sign of good faith to go back into work, taking up their stations, taking up their various responsibilities while the union and the bank met. But given this situation which has presented itself, where the bank clearly is not serious about having this matter resolved in the soonest possible time, the Barbados Workers Union was left with no other choice but to ask the workers to resume their posts on the outside as opposed to being at their respective workstations.
For the past 3 days, workers of the central bank have been off the job, protesting a number of grievances. Chief among these, the bank not following the correct hiring procedure. Another meeting is expected to be held soon. However, until then, Ms. Moore says the union remains adamant striking workers will stay put.
The issue that has workers outside, the issue that brought workers outside, relates to a bargaining unit position which was created by the bank, no position description forwarded to the Barbados Workers Union up to now, because as we gather, there is no position description available for the position, yet there is an incumbent in that temporary position, a position that should have been advertised within the bargaining unit first and foremost to satisfy a requirement of whether or not there were suitable candidates to fill the position, and then any external ads. The bank has not been able to address that question, that issue up until now, and until they're able to do so, we will remain outside.
CBC News tried to contact Public Affairs Officer at the Central Bank, Noveline Brewster, for comment, but those efforts proved unsuccessful. With the Christmas season just over 3 months away, farmers are already moving to try and fill the demand for the busy period. It's that time when vegetables, ham, pork and turkey are in huge demand. And joining us live to give his take on how preparations are going for the Yuletide season is Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul. James, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Good evening.
So, as we said, it is coming up to the busy period. So, how are things going?
I'm thinking that things are going pretty well. You know, but at the moment, because of the fact that you're having some rains, that would actually hinder on feed preparation because of the amount of rain that might be in the various grounds. But as soon as those go, I think farmers will be getting themselves ready to actually have that produce ready.
Have you been hearing from farmers with any concerns about the rains that we've had so far? Because I know that we've had, a significant amount of rainfall.
I think you will be hearing, it depends on the type of farmer. For instance, in the case of the livestock farmers, I mean, you might have some concerns, especially for the dairy farmers, because the wet conditions underfoot is not good for the animals and it actually drags productivity down. But in respect of, say, some vegetable farmers, I think a lot of them might be pleased about it because of the time that is occurring. And it is not consistent heavy rain so far. So the point is really at least that you're given time for the soil to dry out, and you can say, hey, get back into your fields and do what you need to do.
I know that rain is obviously something that you can't do anything about. And things like you said, cows and those types of animals. Is there anything that from your organization's perspective that can be done to mitigate against the rains having an impact as it does so often every year?
There isn't much you can do really. What we try to do is encourage farmers to actually harvest the water. That is very important. I mean, if we can have a system where we collect more of the water that is running off, I think that would be good. But the problem is today that we get a lot more runoff than we used to get in the past, because a lot of wells are going out to commission, and we are not allowing for the fact that we need to put those wells back in place to actually take that rainwater runoff.
One of the things that you are often concerned about, and we hear about it, fairly often, is people being allowed to import produce and the impact that this will have on the farming industry in Barbados. Do we have that concern with things like hams and turkeys and things that we expect to get at Christmas?
It is still a major concern for us. I mean, for instance, even now, we still have situations where there are people who would actually just be bringing in around, say, 10,000 kilograms of a particular commodity, and that commodity can actually be sourced here. The point that we're essentially trying to make, and I think that maybe the business sector in Barbados has not developed to that scale, where there should be that type of linkage between the various businesses that says if they need a product, to identify that it can be sourced. And I think that is the problem. Those kind of backward linkages that are required in business, our business community has not developed to that extent, as happens in other Caribbean islands.
But why don't you have those linkages? I mean, we've been farming forever. We know that we have the produce here. Where has the breakdown come in setting up those links that we need so much? I
think it is attitudes. I think that businesses in our communities develop castles. So for instance, the tourism people only see themselves as tourism people. And they do not go beyond saying that, okay, what is my ability to impact now on other sectors? And they do not exploit that. As against in other islands like Jamaica, you find that major tourism investors in Jamaica have significant investments in the agricultural sector. That is not happening in Barbados. And that is what we're talking about, where if they had that kind of blind and interest, they operated at the same time, we would not see this situation. I think that by and large, a lot of the reasons why we're getting these problems lies at the feet of the private sector in itself.
Well, so we want to know then, because often some of the companies will say, yes, you say that you have the produce, but you can't fill the demand. Are we looking at a situation where we will have, especially if we look at Christmas, we will have the demand for whatever the businesses may need?
But certainly it lies at the stupidity of the people who made that statement. Because in the first place, if you are going to order any item, you know you have to give people some kind of lead time to prepare. And I think it is unreasonable that we still have these people in this country that expect a farmer to come up with carrots tomorrow. It just does not work that way. What we in the sector try to do is to try to ascertain what the likely demand for a commodity should be, whether or not be tourism sector, whether or not the retail sector, and give us an idea what your consumption is likely to be. Based upon that, you can actually prepare now your fields to actually cater to that anticipated demand. Barring the weather or something like that, we do what we have to do. And I think that that is something really that we need to have that greater cooperation between our tourism sectors, our manufacturing sectors, our retail sectors in order to achieve that kind of linkage that we are looking for.
All right, so let's bring it back down now to the Christmas season. How would you summarize the supply and demand for the Christmas season?
Well, let me say that right now, in the poultry sector, we are actually, I'm not sure where I'm seeing these figures, but I can tell you right now that we are seeing some amazing figures in terms of production that are coming up this year. If we keep it up, now we will have a record amount of production in terms of poultry this year, so we should not have any problems there. Also, in terms of the dairy sector, we already have a discussion among our dairy farmers in terms of seeing how they can actually increase production. We anticipate, of course, that we're going to have a bumper tourist season, and even now, we are looking to have a discussion with the tourism sector to see exactly what is the likely tourist arrivals and how can the agriculture sector in itself benefit from that even more. In terms of the ham section, I mean, for instance, this year already, we are seeing so many people being involved in pig farming that I do not anticipate in any case that Barbadians should have a problem in terms of the supply of pork for Christmas at all.
I'm hoping that that will mean the price of ham could possibly come down. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, because you know the fact of the matter is that we do not operate on economies of scale in Barbados. And by and large, I think that people still want to make sure that they are able to cover the overheads and costs, and that is a significant consideration in pricing.
James, thank you very much for coming in tonight, talking to us about the prospects ahead for the Christmas season. That was James Paul, the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society. Well, a new unit has been opened at the psychiatric hospital to offer men help in a less invasive way. This from Director of the hospital, David Leacock, during the opening of the acute male admission unit. He says it's part of an overall plan to offer a more patient-centered environment in a less custodial setting.
The unit itself will carry up to 45 patients. This number is smaller than we've seen on other units in the past, but in keeping with the hospital strategic plan of downsizing our overall numbers and returning clients where possible to their communities of origins. As we said, the need for the unit is very obvious because our situation at present, it is an all-male unit, I should mention, and our situation continues to be that our population within the hospital, males outstrip females by approximately 3 to 1, just under 3 to 1. This is quite a change from when I first came, where numbers were almost even across the hospital.
Meantime, Health Minister John Boyce says a bigger push is being made to educate Barbadians about mental health disorders. The hope, according to him, is to bring that knowledge on par with what they know about cancers, chronic non-communicable diseases and other conditions. He outlined a program for reform planned for the sector.
Comprehensive mental health services that are integrated into the general health system, humane emergency care for persons who may be in crisis, and modernize mental health legislation that promotes the dignity and human rights of all people.
Veteran band leader Reggie Cave has passed away. CBC News understands he died last night at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. 61-year-old Cave was ailing for some time. He was featured on this year's edition of Festival Stage with the Admiral International, where he showed off some pieces for his Kiddies Kadooment band called The Gods Came. Fellow band leader Gwyneth Squires told CBC News she and Cave, although rivals, were very close friends.
When he wants something he don't have, he will call me, and if I want something that I don't have, he has it, he would bring it for me. And to be honest with you, I would miss Reggie. He was a nice person. And we have been friends since he was doing Mass. Well, he in Mass was longer than me because he used to do a lot of children Mass. And to be honest with you, he learned from me and I learned from him. And when they called me this morning at 10 minutes to 12, I didn't sleep. I could not sleep. All I had to do was tears, tears, tears. He will be missed by the crop over fraternity.
We'll have more news in just a moment, but first we want to get your take on this question. Do you believe local farmers can meet the demand for products this Christmas? Text yes or no to short code 8111. We'll have the results at the end of the news.
When you need space to grow, there's nothing like the home you own. Let Scotiabank open the door for you with competitive rates and support every step of the way. Visit us today and discover what's possible.
My baby. That's what we have to do.
You are a romantic.
I had diabetes, and I'm still the same.
Glucerna. Thanks to its benefits that help control my blood sugar spikes and provides energy. Drinking it daily.
Glucerna. Keep being you.
Toddlers only get about 25% of the DHA that experts recommend.
Is that true?
Yes, even in a healthy diet. That's because DHA is found in foods which many toddlers don't eat.
How can I help?
I recommend Enfagrow Toddler with DHA and other key nutrients. It helps support brain development in 4 key skill areas: cognitive, motor, communication, and social.
3, 6, 9.
Great job, son.
Every Wednesday and every Friday at 10:30 a.m. it's the Eddie Street and Half Hour with yours truly. Up on 98.1 The One. I'm going to tell you what we have in store from Eddie's Supermarket, Eddie's Soul Sale, Eddie's Feed Depot, Eddie's Boutique, and LC Variety. The Eddie Street and Half Hour, Wednesdays and Fridays at 10:30 a.m. on 98.1 The One. Your mind.
A year after signing a memorandum of understanding, Barbados has received a shipment of equipment that is expected to make a significant dent in government's energy bill. China's ambassador to Barbados, Wang Ke, officially handed over 25,000 LED lights and 1,000 inverter air conditioning units. Minister in the Prime Minister's office, Senator Darcy Boyce, says lighting and air conditioning accounts for a large portion of the $100 million spent each year on government buildings. He explains the equipment will be used at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, polyclinics, police stations, the Barbados Fire Service, and other buildings.
The energy efficient equipment was received in April this year. Already in excess of 6,000 lights have been installed in several government-owned buildings. The remainder have been allocated and are expected to be installed by the end of this year. In addition to the donation of this energy-efficient equipment, the People's Republic of China has also assisted in capacity building by providing training for technicians using the same equipment. And this training has been provided across all of the institutions that will receive the benefit of this donation.
Ambassador Ke says with 1.5 billion people, China has always taken responsibility for its part in global warming and remains committed to doing its part to control the phenomenon.
In recent years, the collaboration in the area of renewable energy has gradually become an important part of the China-Barbados practical cooperation. Besides the equipment we handed over today, the Chinese side will set up solar power unit for the Garfield Sober Gymnasium in 2016 to optimize its power consumption structure and cut down its electricity costs.
A special burial ceremony was held at the St. Mary's Church recently. It was the re-entombment of the Barclay family 200 years after they were buried for the first time. Earlier this year, a large mahogany tree in the yard of the church fell, damaging the tomb and forcing the church to hold several fundraisers to rebuild it. Barbados' ambassador to CARICOM and historian Robert Bobby Morris traced the history of the Barclay and other families who are buried in the church's yard. He says those families gave St. Mary's a special advantage.
This is really the burial ground of the colored aristocracy of Barbados. I'm making the point that within this acreage, there are people of such distinction that carry our Negro blood, that there should be a hallowed space in terms of the city. And I believe it has to be a tremendous heritage site. And all of us who love history and who love the Anglican Church have to work together to make sure that this becomes a heritage site. You have to get the markings and the signage.
The Eden Lodge Nursery School is going to be closed for the remainder of the week. This news from Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, June Chandler. She says officials from the Education Ministry did a site visit yesterday and decided to keep the school closed for the rest of this week to allow refurbishment to be completed. She says repairs are at an advanced stage but have been held up by recent heavy rains. Ms. Chandler has apologized for the inconvenience caused to parents and students and expects Eden Lodge Nursery will reopen next Monday. Still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across the region. But first, a reminder that we want to hear from you on this question. Do you believe local farmers can meet the demand for products this Christmas? Text yes or no to short code 8111. We'll have the results for you at the end of the news. Now remember, you can also follow us on Twitter at CBC_.